1 minute early to be exact, but let's go ahead and dive into it. So I kind of put this as the first slide, and it's the way I'd like you to view everything that we're talking about today, because it really is this simple. Motion is lotion, and if you rest too much, you rust. Meaning, the more sedentary you are, the less you move, the stiffer you're going to be. Okay, so what motion or movement or exercise is to one person is different to the next person. So everything is very individualized. Keep in mind that I am presenting general information. If you have chronic conditions or injuries or joint replacements, there are always going to be exceptions, and always follow your doctor's recommendations or your therapist's. So what we're going to talk about today is the aging body, understanding everyday stiffness, and talking about what are some of the physiological changes that are happening that contribute to stiffness. And so has anybody ever woken up like this? Right? And so when you think of stiffness or see this picture, what do you think of? Pain? Back? Joints? Achy? Discomfort? Limited range of motion? Right? And so, we're going to try to talk a lot about all those different things. We've got quite a few more people coming in, so I'll just give it a little bit of a pause. And if you can move up to the front, we have plenty of room over here on the side, up front. Must have been an elevator rush. But one of the things to think about is, when we wake up in the morning, we often feel more stiff because we haven't moved for 8 hours, or we've been lying in that bed for 10 hours or 6 hours. So we haven't had that movement or that fluidity to increase our circulation, to lubricate our joints, to have the muscle pliability. So often when we're waking up in the morning, that's why we feel more stiff. But what do we often do? We get up, we go to the bathroom, and then maybe we go to the kitchen, get a cup of coffee, and we sit down for another hour or two and read the paper. Is that going to help you feel any better right away? Probably not, right? Because we've just gone from a sedentary lying in our bed position to now we're just going to go sit. So if you wake up with stiffness, it might be a good idea to do some movement before you sit and are sedentary for a period of time again. So the things we're going to talk about today are, I kind of just dialed into 3 different areas: connective tissue, joints and joint lubrication, and muscle. I didn't want to go down the full road of inflammation because that's a whole topic on its own. But so we're going to focus on those 3 areas. We'll kind of talk about some next steps that you can do, and then we have a bunch of active movement. The slides are already on Touchdown. So the active movement section is a lot of pictures with movements that you can do to help reduce stiffness. So you can look at those pictures as soon as you get home and see what they are. So our connective tissue is a huge component of our bodies. It's made up of proteins, and it's found in our bones, tendons, ligaments, skin, cartilage, around our organs, in our blood vessels. So it's in a lot of places in our body, so it plays a huge role in our structure. So think about ligaments. Ligaments connect bone to bone. And then we have tendons, which connect bone to muscle. They're kind of the bridge. Okay, so those are 2 very important connective tissue structures. Connective tissue, such as our tendons and our ligaments and our bones, tend to have a very different blood supply than our bones themselves do, or our skin. Okay, so just realize all these things have different blood supplies. But they're a very important structural component in our body. They support our body, they help bind things together. Our skin obviously protects us. And then also thinking about how our connective tissue is resilient, flexible, and elastic. right? This is how we want it to be. Sometimes as we get older, it goes like this and then it doesn't come back, okay? Or it gets stiffer and we can't pull it apart, right? Which may be what's happening to some of our muscles and tendons. They no longer have that pliability. And again, we're going to talk about some of those things. So this is what we want, but then we have some changes that are associated with aging. We're going to look at a couple specific connective tissue components called elastin and collagen. You've probably heard about collagen supplements for our joints. But this is an example of younger skin and older skin. The one on the left, we're looking at the collagen and elastin fiber. So the collagen is the white, and then the elastin is the red. And what happens with aging, just in our skin as the connective tissue that we're talking about, is there's less collagen fibers, and you can see that the elastin fibers are getting broken up. So that structural integrity is compromised. And that is part of the aging process. I mean, we can't keep our skin looking young all through our lives. Oh darn, I know. The media may try to tell us otherwise. So the changes that happen is it becomes less pliable and less elasticity, meaning it doesn't snap back. I kind of use a spring as an example down here. So there's less stretch and there's less recoil for it to bounce back. There's actual changes in the physical and chemistry of those components. And that, you can't impact the chemistry, right? With the aging, the changes in the chemistry. The fluid around the cells themselves is changing and becoming stiffer. And remember, we're made up of billions of cells, right? That's what makes us. And there's a stiffening of the fluid at that basic building component. Another important thing about this connective tissue, the elastin and the collagen, is it's very important for tissue repair. You've probably noticed if you get a wound, a cut, a sore, it takes much longer to heal as we get older because of the degradation and the changes in the elastin and collagen. Any questions on this so far? I know this isn't the most exciting part. We're going to get there. In the collagen, there are things that you've already done in your life that are going to impact the health of those collagen fibers. If you've smoked, if you've spent a lot of time in the sun. How often have we seen someone who has smoked or been out in the sun a lot, and maybe they look 10 years older or their face is more wrinkled because it's affected the chemistry in their skin and it's degraded faster, okay? So that's just an example of how our lifestyle choices can affect that. Okay, so getting into our joints, a lot of the examples I have today are of the knee. Someone said thank you. But we can think of many of our joints as having the same cartilage coverage of the end of the bones, the synovial fluid, so those protective mechanisms. So our cartilage, we're going to talk about the cartilage, and that's what's typically around the end of our bones. You often hear, oh, my knee is bone on bone, and then every time you take a step, it's like crunch, crack, and it hurts. Okay, we want this smooth, silky type surface for our bones to move smoothly next to one another. Something to consider when it comes to that protective mechanism around our bones, the cells that make up that cartilage are very rich in water. So if you're dehydrated, that is going to affect the health of that coverage that is around your bones or in the joints. So obviously we know it's going to reduce friction, right? We just talked about that. You want that smooth movement. You don't want to have friction between your joints. I have a lot of different pictures we're going to look at. We're looking at a nice healthy joint now. We're going to look at some awful joints. In addition to the cartilage, and keep in mind, we've got the cover of the end of the bones, some of the bones, that is this cartilage. But then we also have synovial fluid, or we have fluid in those areas that help keep everything moving smoothly, okay? Since we're talking about joints and this smooth coverage, how many joints do you think are in the body? Many? So we have 250 to 350. So 250 to 350, depending on who you ask and how they're classifying what a joint is. But I mean, if you think about it, you have one on the end of your finger, right? You've got them here. You've got your larger joints. So we have a lot of joints. We have a lot of cartilage in all of those joints, okay? So we have a lot of, the way to look at it is we have a lot of areas that could also cause us problems. So this is a nice, simple image of the bone, how we have the cartilage, which is the blue, protecting the bone, but then we have that synovial fluid that is also providing this nice, smooth surface within, okay? This rendition is not of an actual joint. I don't know of any actual joints that look like that, but this was the best one I saw that captured the synovial fluid, okay? So you've got cartilage and then you've got some fluid. Some of you probably have x-rays that look like this, especially the one on your right. Okay, that is definitely bone on bone. That is not going to feel very good. That knee does not have any cushioning. You know, the meniscus may be broken down on that outer side. There may be some bone spurs. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So there's thinning or damage of that cartilage, increased friction. And when it comes to our synovial fluid, as we age, the quality of the synovial fluid decreases. So think of a high quality motor oil that's in your car when you first get your car. And as things go along, you decide, oh, I'm going to use some used motor oil and put it in. So the quality of the fluid isn't as good anymore. The quantity of the fluid also changes. Those are not primary issues with the synovial fluid, but they are something that is happening at the cellular level. The quality and the quantity is changing. Some of the things that can impact the quality of the fluid. Okay, keep hearing this word fluid. Hydration. So we talked about how cartilage is also a water-rich substance. You know, if you think about the meniscus, or you see a chicken bone, you know, the end of a leg of a chicken, you know, it's got that smooth cartilage. There's moisture to that. Hydration impacts that. Movement will impact that. And inflammation will also have a negative impact on that, okay? So we want to stay hydrated, we want to move and keep our inflammation down. Again, I'm not going to go down the whole discussion of inflammation because that's a big topic on its own. Okay, so now the knee on the left is a nice healthy knee. You see that beautiful smooth cartilage. You see the meniscus, one on each side, medial and lateral. You've got some space between the joint. Now the one on the right, we've got these bumpy bone spurs. The cartilage is kind of worn away, so we have some exposed spaces. And then because the meniscus is worn down, there's not the adequate space between your thigh bone and your lower leg bone that there should be. So when you move and maybe you bend it a certain distance, then it kind of hurts or it catches or it clicks. When it comes to bone spurs, and I'm going to look at my notes on this so I state it properly. So bone spurs are thought to be a misguided repair mechanism in response to chronic damage and joint instability. So your body is responding to something, it thinks it's doing it right, but it's actually causing more problems. Okay? When we get a lot of those, you know, it definitely can cause pain, clicking, and other discomfort. All right, we're going to look at another example. In this particular picture, the thigh bone is on top of the lower leg bone. In the next picture, the thigh is bent back so you can see the full front of the cartilage of the upper thigh. Okay, and this is just giving a little bit more example of, you know, the cartilage has some injury, the bone is exposed, the meniscus may have some little tears, and often if you feel like your knee gives or it catches, it can often be the meniscus. And there'll be little fragments. And then the osteophytes, I'm going to slide over here a little bit. The osteophytes are those bone spurs. Osteophytes are another word for bone spurs. Yes?
How does a doctor repair that?
So so the question is, how does a doctor repair that? It depends on the individual. And I'm not a physician, so I'm not going to get into that. There could be, sometimes meniscus surgery is needed. Sometimes they can stitch it up. Sometimes it's a knee replacement or a hip replacement. Okay? So our goal is to try to avoid it to start with. And then as we talk about movement, we need to take advantage of those opportunities when we're not hurting, and that's when we move. And we move within whatever our ability is. Okay, so we are going to shift now to something that I am much more of an expert on. So let's talk about muscles. How many muscles are in the body? Hundreds, 650 to 700 muscles, depending on who's classifying. Okay, so let's just say 700. Let's say 350 joints. 700 muscles, 350 joints. What can you deduct from that?
Muscles are important.
Muscles are important.
You got 2 muscles for every joint.
How about we're made to move? Right? Why would you have all these joints and muscles if we weren't meant to move? We are not meant to be sedentary beings. All right, like I said, my area, muscle mass. So I have used this picture over and over for years in presentations. The top picture is a 40-year-old triathlete. It is, if you cut my leg and look down at it from above. So the central white that you are seeing is the thigh bone. The steak is your muscle. And then the white is the adipose tissue in the skin. Okay? The second picture is a 74-year-old sedentary individual. The bottom one is a 70-year-old triathlete. So you don't tell me you have to look like the 74-year-old sedentary. One thing you're also going to notice in that middle picture is the bone is smaller in the center, right? Movement. The tendon is going to pull on the bone. Your bones are constantly remodeling. The more you're moving, the more bone remodeling is going to take place, the stronger your bones are going to be. Anyone who's been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis typically are told to move. Love this picture. Love this picture. Our destiny is not set. And even if you are that 74-year-old sedentary man, you can change some of that. Studies prove it time and time again. Muscles. Some other great things that they do. Heat. When you're cold, if you get up and move, you will warm up. If you continue to sit, your muscles aren't creating heat, right? If you get up and move, if you do anything, your body's gonna warm up a little bit, okay? Our muscles are great for helping us with our posture. Typically, when our posture starts doing this, besides bony changes or skeletal changes, our muscles are getting weakened and are not holding us up. But again, we could have osteoporosis or fractures in our spine that are causing things. But a big thing is heat production, right? When you're cold, get up and move. So changes that happen as we get older. Typically, there's a decline in strength, partially due to the loss of muscle fibers. There's reduced nerve innervation to activate muscle fibers. So, what you've probably heard is called fast twitch muscle fibers, or like think of a sprinter. They have what we call type 2 or fast twitch muscle fibers. They move quickly. The innervation to those fibers decreases as we get older, which is one of the reasons we tend to move slower. We don't want to sprint. We don't want to jump. We don't want to do things that are going to use those muscle fibers. We don't have as many. It's uncomfortable, okay? But we need to use them to keep them innervated. If you don't have the nerve signals going to them, they're not going to fire. You need the nerves to send a message to say, turn on, do this. Sarcopenia. You've probably heard about this. It's age-related loss of muscle mass and contractile force, meaning we don't have the power that we used to. But it is unclear whether it's aging or disuse that contributes more to that. Okay? So, doesn't mean you have to. Okay? Additionally, if we are sedentary, think of that healthy steak, looking back at that 70-year-old triathlete, looking at those muscle fibers, his fibers are nice and pliable, they have good muscle or blood circulation. The other gentleman, the 74-year-old sedentary, his functional muscle fibers have been replaced with different tissue that is more fibrous. And what I like to say is more like beef jerky, right? It's not as pliable. It's not hydrated. It's not going to move well. Now it's got these other components in it that don't allow it to be as elastic and functional. It's now more fibrous. All right. So, what do you do? I could dive deep into any of those topics we've previously hit about the connective tissue, the joints, and the lubrication or the muscle mass. But it really comes down to what do you need to do? You need to move. You need to move. Be consistent with your movement. Moving on Monday and taking the rest of the week off isn't going to help you. Okay? Strength train. Remember the picture of the triathlete? You need to build muscle. You can build muscle, regardless of your age. Hydrate appropriately for your body. Okay, so we talked about how the cartilage and a lot of the connective tissue, needs hydration, needs water. I don't know what's appropriate for you. Okay, I hopefully we realize that the 8-ounce glasses of water is no longer the standard. Right? If you're not sure how much water you should have, ask your doctor, ask a nutritionist. Because some of you are on medications that are going to impact that also. Avoid excessive sitting. We are going on minute 23. We're about at our max. Okay? You've probably heard that sitting is the new smoking. Okay? If you haven't, you just did. I encourage people to get up every 30 to 45 minutes. Get up, take a lap around your apartment, come back down, sit down, do some more work. If you sit for an excessive period of time, you're not getting the sugars out of your blood. The fat in your blood circulation is there. When you increase your circulation, it gives your cells a chance to go grab and do the things they're supposed to do, okay? It's proven like with diabetes that exercise is gonna help your cells grab that sugar and get it out of the bloodstream. We don't want sugar lingering in our bloodstream. That leads to inflammation. There's nothing good about sugar besides how it tastes. And it's really what our brain uses at the cellular level when we talk about glucose. But if you can be selective of when you choose to have your treats, that's what I would recommend. We're all gonna have our treats, okay? Just be selective, don't overdo it. Maintain a healthy weight. Excessive weight puts a lot of pressure on our joints, back, hips, knees. That's one of the things that you can control, hopefully. And create a daily routine or ritual of consistent daily movement. Okay? I had a client call it, what did she call it? Ritualistic space. That's what she termed her daily routine, and I love that. Set aside time. Your health is important. I don't know if anyone in this room can tell me that their health is not important. Okay? Prioritize it. Don't let it keep slipping down to the bottom of the things to do, and by the end of the day, you're like, oh, didn't have time. I have a lot of people who use me as a personal trainer because they have to show up, right? And that's how they do it. But I would really, really encourage you to create a daily ritual or a daily routine where you're prioritizing you. All right, so disclaimer. All right, so first thing, stand up. It's been 30 minutes. Okay? So, did anybody feel stiff after standing up after 30 minutes? Okay, so imagine, go ahead and sit back in. If you're going to a concert or another presentation or doing anything where you're sitting for an hour, some of you felt stiff after 30 minutes. What I would recommend, and it's not in this first few slides, it's a little bit later, but maybe you can sit and do a few ankle circles. So I actually have that in this one, over on the right. You can do the alphabet. Okay, let's grab one foot, lift it up, and do an A, capital by the way, B, C, D, E, F. And then let's switch feet. G, H, big letters, folks. I, J, K, and rest. That's just one thing you can do that'll get some circulation going back in your ankles. If you were at, say, like an opera performance, maybe you march a little bit, just in your seat, or maybe you try to straighten your legs about 10 times if you have space under the chairs. And then when you go to stand up, your legs are a little primed. You know, you've started to increase the circulation. But looking back at this slide, okay, so we did feet, hands, and so this is in the PowerPoint that you can find on Touchtown, and I'll remind you at the end where it is in Touchtown. But I did these so you could print them or look at them and do them, okay? So making, like you put your hands up and then just kind of bend your forward so your knuckles are sticking up, and then open your hand again, and then make a claw like you're a cat trying to grab onto a curtain, okay? Trying to get those fingertips to your pads of your hand, and then we open it up again, and then we bring the fingertips all the way down, and then we open it up again, and then we make a fist, and then we open it up again. Now just spread your fingers as wide as you can. Now touch, pinky, ring, middle, index, and go back the other way. Okay, and then just kind of wiggle all those digits around. One thing to keep in mind with the picture on the far left, you have a joint at the very top of your finger. You've got the middle joint, and then you've got a joint where your knuckles are. That's why they have you bending in different ways. You want to get each and every one of those joints. Okay, we're increasing circulation, fluid. Okay, and the crazy thing, and I know we've talked about this before, there are no muscles in your fingers. You got tendons and ligaments in your fingers. There are no muscles in your fingers. There are muscles in your hand, but not in your fingers. So the movement is coming from your hand. Up here, chopped off my finger, there's not muscles up there. There's tendons and ligaments that are moved by the muscles. All right, so if we get a stiff neck, okay, I tried to do slides with different body parts. So most of us have a forward head posture, okay? And if you think about, some of you have been taught this way, to push your chin back or pull back and try to give yourself a double chin, okay? And then pull back. But that's actually helping to stretch some muscles on the back of your neck and activate muscles underneath your chin that tend to be weak when our head is jutted forward all day. Okay? So that's a nice one. If you have arthritis in your neck or your neck is stiff, guess what? Again, move it, turn it side to side. It's not going to get less stiff if you do nothing. It's just going to get stiffer. Okay? And then you can do the head tilt side to side. What's really key with this is relax your shoulders, because what we tend to do is like, oh, look, I can touch my ear to my shoulder. Okay? Keep the shoulders down and just relax. There's a lot of nerves that come out of our cervical spine up here. So I tend to only hold neck stretches for about 10 seconds. You do what feels good for you. Always. All right. And for your spine, I like this one because you kind of clasp your hands and then you pull your elbows apart a little bit. So clasp your hands like hooks. Okay. Now what happens when you pull your elbows out to the sides? Yeah, it activates. You kind of lift your chest just a little bit. Yeah, you feel the muscles activate under. Okay. And then from there you rotate, but keep your hands at the center of your chest. So you're rotating your spine, not your arms. Okay, but I do like that little pull apart. I feel like it sets your shoulders back in your spine a little bit. All right, so other things we can do for the shoulders, just sitting here, we can squeeze those shoulder blades together. Now, what I'd like you to think about is not thrusting your chest out, but bringing the shoulders together. So it's more subtle. It's not, right? It's just squeeze them together. And what it does is it lifts your sternum ever so slightly. Guess what? You can do that on a Zoom meeting, sitting at your desk, waiting for the elevator, right? And what is that doing? It's opening me up a little bit through my front, strengthening my back. And I think most of us here would love to have better posture. Okay? Another one, you can hold a cane, a trekking pole, a broom, just pressing in and out. What we're talking about today is creating movement that's going to help our muscles, joints, and connective tissue. Yeah. Okay, we're just moving in and out. And you know what? If you feel like that bunch of shoulders in your neck, you do it a little lower. You know, you adjust it for you. Last one up here on the right is anyone who's had rotator cuff has probably done this exercise with a band, but you can do it without a band. You just squeeze, and it's subtle and gentle. It's not squeezing as hard as you can. But guess what? You're moving in that shoulder socket. But at the same time, if you focus on squeezing and pausing for a moment, you're also going to strengthen those muscles back there, even if you don't have any resistance. Lying on your side, doing the rotator cuff. The middle one on the bottom, he's just opening his arms out to the side. And I have another one I love, like when your arms are down and you're lying on your back, do snow angel wings. If your shoulders are okay with that. Yeah, so you're lying on your back in bed, doing snow angel wings. It's a nice big movement, okay? And then this last one is just holding something, bringing it up over your head and down. Now, some of you are gonna have shoulder issues, and some of these don't work for you. That's okay, some of them will. And again, might have shoulder issues, works, doesn't work, okay? My thought process is if you can't reach like that, if you can reach like this, then this is what you should do. Because if you don't, pretty soon your movement's gonna become less and less. Things are gonna stiffen up more. Maybe you're gonna get more bone spurs. There's gonna be less fluid in that joint. Move at whatever ability that you have the ability to. One in the middle, he's back against the wall, just sliding the back of his arms up and down the wall. So, sliding up and down the wall. And then the far one, I really like this one, and again, it depends on your shoulders. So if there's a wall in front of me, I'm putting my hands up, and then I'm kind of pushing into it, okay? And the great thing about it is, you see how he's lengthening through the mid part of his back. And that's where a lot of us have challenge. With any of this, you do not force it. You never force it. For the knees, over on the left, obviously you can't really do this, but kicking your butt, okay? I'm not lifting my knees up. I'm kicking my feet back. Good. Good for the knees, stretch for the quads. High knees. So if you've been sitting for a while, doing those top two are really great to take a break from maybe you're working at your desk. On the bottom, I think most of you can do this. Just you can roll your knee, open your knees out as you roll to the outsides of your feet and come back in. Hips. So you're basically, your hip is a ball and socket joint, just like your shoulder, and we're just trying to move that hip socket around. And then we talked about the leg extensions, getting some blood flow to those legs, especially if you've been seated for a while. Okay, and then you go to get up, hopefully you feel a little better. All right, I put a few that would be on your back or hands and knees in bed, cat-cow, good movement for the spine. Next one, the gentleman's just dropping his knees side to side a little bit. Single knee to chest, double knee to chest. Again, these are at the end of the presentation so you can view them. You don't have to remember them. Any questions at this point?
I recommend people go to chair exercise.
Okay, recommendation to go to chair exercise. Move. Okay, whatever works for you, move. Yes, Carolyn?
I like that black ball you've given us from time to time. Just hold it and squeeze it, and it interests me that there's no muscles in I use my fingers all the time, but anyway, it's a great exercise.
So Carolyn's talking about the Consonas Age Strong, the black squishy balls that you can get from therapy, and how she'll squeeze them. And what I would recommend is squeeze them, and then if you can, open your hand all the way, and then squeeze. Getting that full range, because that's going to help all the joints. But just squeezing it is also going to help to strengthen. Jay, in the back.
Do these things before you get out of bed.
So do these things before you get out of bed. Depends on the individual and the circumstance. Yes.
It's time to think about your day as well as.
Yeah, it's. So the question was, she said, suggested doing them before you get out of bed in the morning. Yes, Molly.
I just was wondering, in your experience, have you ever noticed that there may be a change in people's ability if they begin taking collagen? We see that. I'd love your opinion, but maybe you don't want to get into that.
I knew this question would come up about collagen supplementation. I can recommend you to some websites. There is not enough scientific evidence and large enough studies to support it. And I'm sure many of you have heard this also. For some people it works, for others it doesn't. I did talk to our nutritionist before this because I knew a question would come up about collagen. And so I do have a resource that I can email to you and let you do your own information. The other thing I'm going to touch on is what often comes up, heat or ice, right?
Nice.
So heat is going to increase circulation to the area. So if you're feeling really stiff before you get out of bed, maybe you throw a heating pad on your back and then you get up. Ice is going to restrict blood flow to the area and reduce swelling. Okay? So often they say ice if it's acute, heat if it's chronic. But in either case, always, always, always protect your skin. Remember, your skin is not as durable as it used to be, and I don't need to tell you that. Protect your skin, whether it is heat or ice. And if you're unsure which direction to go, contact a medical professional. So the presentation, if you're not too familiar with Touchdown, if you go to documents, I always hit collapse all and then go to fitness docs. The presentation is in there. I had it put in there before I even presented today because I wanted you all to be able to just refer back to all those pictures and maybe pick out a few. That's why there's so many. But just a reminder that motion is lotion, and if you rest too much, you rest. I'll stick around if anyone has any other questions. Good?